Convene our meetings. So welcome to the Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District Board of Directors meeting. This is our 1441st meeting. So we will first start with a call to order. Oh, I am the call to order. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about my missing director. We're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Raymond James, do you wouldn't mind leading us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And now we'll do the roll.
Chair Manning.
Here.
Vice Chair Carhart. Acting Net. Director Irwin.
Here.
Director Mound.
Here.
Director O'Farrell.
Here.
Okay. So we'll start with item number 4, which is presentation, proclamations, and recognition. And there is a presentation by the Parkway Disc Golf Foundation.
Good evening. The Parkway Disc Golf Foundation would like to propose opening the disc golf course at Miller Park for the weekends only until we can further secure another disc golf course at another location. That would open up the opportunity for children and families and for our weekly tags to take place throughout the year. Kids and the families can have it all week long and just open it up on Saturday and Sunday for recreational play for the community.
Just to add a little bit to it, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hearing us. There's a big need for Miller Park because it's such a beginner-friendly course compared to a lot of the courses in our area. Being a newbie to play it can be very intimidating. Going to some of the other courses that are much longer, much more experienced players, you feel funny throwing in front of other people. And Miller Park is excellent for the families and the beginner level skills. So, thank you.
I haven't heard anything. That was a surprise to me. Has anybody heard about that being brought as an item for just the weekends?
Well, we got a request from them to be put on agenda. I checked with Chair, and Belinda said yes, go ahead and put on the agenda. It is. We haven't vetted through that at all in terms of what that looks like from a staffing or an operation point of view.
So, but the Parkway Disc Golf Foundation, they're not technically associated exclusively with Miller Disc Golf Park. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to.
I mean, they're not one of our quote unquote user groups, right?
They are the user group that essentially operates at Miller Park. They're not a community partner group, but they are the primary disc golf user group that operates at that disc golf course.
So then, is that perhaps something that we either now or during director comments potentially bring up as a recommendation to have on the next agenda item to make that, or is that something we direct you to, Mike, to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were to go that route, what we would want to do is spend a little time and look at the impact of something like that and then report back to the board of what that impact might be. And then if it is something that the board wishes to do, then at that point probably make some kind of push and vote either board or groups.
So, Mike.
But we would need to, yeah, we would need to gather stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I mean, this has been kind of an ongoing process.
Right.
I believe there's been quite a bit of compromise on both sides, between the parents and the user group. As a board, we approved a redesign of the course. We spent a considerable amount of money on that to make the course safe, and now we're sort of removing part of the course permanently. So it does make complete sense to me that while school's don't play, we at least install those baskets back in place so the community can use them on the weekends. So that's what I think on it. I don't really see a reason why we wouldn't. The whole reason that we removed them was because of the hours of the egress from the kids going to school.
Yeah, it would just be the impact of that removal and replacement of those baskets, depending on if you're doing it on weekends, for an example. That's Saturday time to remove 4 baskets.
I think it would make more sense to do it like Friday at say 4 o'clock.
With At this point in time, we don't have those resources available to us.
Sean, how long do you think that would take?
Probably take 2 guys, 2 trucks, a little over an hour, 7 baskets back out, get everything set up.
So currently, how many baskets are out of play?
There are 7 baskets.
Okay.
Uh,
So-
8.
So is the idea, because that wasn't quite clear to me, so would the idea be that no baskets are in play during the week, and then you're suggesting that all of the baskets are now in play, including the 7 baskets that were taken away, is that correct?
Yeah, well, the way it is right now is the baskets are, if you will, south of the creek.
Right,
So everything in the north of the creek has pretty much been pulled.
right.
So it's, some of the holes have 2 baskets, so that's why there's so many baskets for 4 holes. My suggestion was that during the week, we still have south of the creek because it's not impacting the flow of children during the peak hours. But during the weekend, when the school's not coming and going, there's not going to be a lot of kids coming down the sidewalk, the whole course would be available later.
Gotcha. That wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, and then, and just to add a little bit more color to that, in my conversations with the group, sort of the long-term play is to get these baskets temporarily back in place on the weekends. And then, and that's sort of an interim thing while we identify a second location where we can permanently move something that's a little bit more removed from, children and things like that. Which I think we're vetting Phoenix a little bit,
Yeah.
or not Phoenix.
Bannister.
Bannister.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Director Tony, but I mean, I would like to see this a little bit more kind of brought to us as an actual agendized item and hear more and, if there are, how
But
many
to
people?
answer your question about Parkway Discount Elevation.
Yeah.
We were the majority fundraising event that bought all the supplies that installed them.
How many members do you have? Do you know?
Well, we have a core group that's 15 people that came together to kind of come up with the idea of putting the park in. And then we have a group of people that show up once a week, or that did show once a week, that it's about 40 people.
Gotcha.
And that's on usually a Sunday morning.
And then one of the members donated and paid for an additional 9 baskets, about $5,000 or $6,000. So,
And I gotta be honest, that member's a little disgruntled because he sees his investment, even though it was a donation, just kind of sitting in a closet and not being used.
It would be great to hear from them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to see this brought forward more as an agendized item to kind of hear and understand more, because I kind of feel like the presentation of that, I feel a little bit out of left field of understanding of that and having no details on that, so.
Well, and
Well, I'm sorry for that,
It's not your fault.
No, but the baskets were full and we were simply asking for them to be put back on the weekend. I didn't feel there needed to be a lot of discussion on that because you guys pulled them. So you would know where they are.
Yeah.
And the idea was just to put them back.
And it's just that timing, we need to concern ourselves with that timing and then staff resources necessary to do that. Storage of those baskets in between those times, where does that happen? It's not a small storage.
Right,
So-
so because of that,
In a
it
bucket
sounds like
somewhere.
it should be an agendized
Yeah.
item that I'd be happy to see at the next board meeting if that works for staff and my fellow directors.
Yeah, so that gives us an opportunity to look into those options.
Okay, so we'll look forward to further discussion in March. So thank you. Next we'll move to item number 5, which is audience for public comment for non-agenda items. So, I'd like to point out that on our agenda tonight, we do have, parking in the village is one of the items, and so is the chicken festival. And so if you would like to speak to either of those items, I'd ask that you hold your comments and wait until that time. But if you have a public comment that you would like to make that is unrelated to something that's on the agenda, this is the time we would love to hear from you. So is there anyone that would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? I believe all the ones that we have up here, are ones that we have on the agenda. Is there anyone online? Ian?
Yes, I do have one.
Okay.
Lindsay, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, you guys know me. I just wanted to, I'm happy to hear that it's going to be an agendized item about Miller Park. But I just wanted to say, as from a parent representative standpoint, we're all very happy with the way the disc golf course is currently laid out. If people want to keep the disc golf course in the current area, in the forest area, it seems like a really nice layout. A lot of parents are a lot less stressed. The park is being utilized more. So I like the idea of if you guys want to put something on the agenda. But it would be nice if you guys could also kind of address like just sort of repurposing the current area where the baskets are and allowing people to play that beginner course in that section instead of the whole park.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on non-agenda items?
I noticed, ma'am, I don't remember your name in the back, but I know that you lived behind, you lived behind.
I live
Behind, I remember your comment. I'm just curious with everything that's been kind of adjusted a bit, if things have been a bit better for you, if you've heard anything from the neighbors as it pertains to.
May I?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think the problem with the whole park is the way it was done. It was deceitful. We were not allowed to participate, and we're still excluded. I think if the neighborhood had been allowed to participate and have a conversation, we could have figured out if we could make it work and how we could make it. I find most of the Frisbee golfers extremely polite. They're very nice. We spoke last time about my neighbor whose tree and fence had come down. Nobody from the park responded to help her. She hasn't heard, she's an 80-something-year-old woman. Her tree came down, broke the fence. It was the park's tree. No one ever addressed it. A Frisbee golfer went to her house after the last meeting, cut the tree and fixed the fence. So our problem is not with the Frisbee golfers. Our problem is the fact that nobody talked to me about the fact that this Frisbee golfing was going in till half an hour before the first meeting, and I got a call, and I trusted the park staff, and I said, you know, do I need to be there? What's Frisbee golf? And they said, no, it won't impact. And then 3 stations went behind my yard. So 300 Frisbees in later, and I'm an old woman. It breaks my heart to see somebody's Frisbee golf go to the dump or go in the lake. I think if you include us, maybe what we can do is if they want to keep part of the park, it might work. I don't have a problem if there's communication, like the trees went in by my fence. I don't know what these trees are. I contacted the park. I asked what was going on. There's a whole row of trees. I said, well, these trees, they were put in because the Frisbee golf consultant recommended them. Well, okay, you can put them in the park, but are these branches going to be in my yard? Yes. How far in my yard? You put them you put all the trees right where my yard is, and all the trees are going to be in the yard, and I'm the one who's going to have to pay somebody to come and prune those trees. And so I think it's that lack of respect that's creating part of the problem. I asked if the trees could be removed or to tell me what these trees are going to do to my yard. No response. They'll be removed, but we're too busy. They'll be gone by November. They'll be gone by December. They'll be gone. Nothing. So I think it's the lack of respect that we notice, that then because things have not been discussed, solutions are not found. If you're going to put a Frisbee golf course, they took the fence down between my fence and the park. They didn't put a fence there because they needed to mow it for the Frisbee golfers. But then people were breaking my fence in to go get their discs out of my yard. I don't want to be a bitch. I don't want to have to pitch a fit. If you had put that fence in when you were supposed to, we wouldn't have had a problem. if you had put a net up when you were supposed to, half of those Frisbee golf discs would have been saved. I was paying people to go and weed the park behind my house. Everybody knew that. I paid people to weed that area because the park wouldn't do it. Yet they were just, so meticulous about taking care of where the Frisbee golf area was. I think that kind of nepotism becomes really disrespectful. So, you want to have Frisbee golfers? Nobody hates Frisbee golfers. Many of them are very polite and lovely people. But when you are disrespectful to us, I'll just finish. When you are disrespectful.
That is 3 minutes.
Thank you. But
Ma'am, that is 3 minutes. and we
I
have
appreciate
public comment for
Thank
3
you.
minutes.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay, we're gonna move to item number 6, which is the consent calendar.
Motion to approve.
I have a question before we do that. Item number 6 was a little confusing to me, the change order on insurance reimbursement. That wasn't an additional payment to the contractor, that was just the adjustment to that contingency account, was it?
Yes, that was an adjustment to increase the
Oh,
contingency from the reimbursement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item number 7, unfinished business, discussion and possible action regarding a change order of $77,454.71 for Veteran Memorial Amphitheater hangar doors.
And I say this was an item that we discussed quite a bit at a previous meeting and tabled for this meeting. In the staff report, I kept looking for some discussion of what ISC or what our architect said. Maybe you can expound on that
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah, I got the information here now. So anyway, this recommendation for a change order for the amphitheater hangar doors in the amount of $77,454.17. You, at your last meeting, had requested that we come back and say, why is that our responsibility? Because the doors had been discontinued and the materials and sizing and stuff was no longer available. So we had to do modifications to the frames of the doors, and there was an increase in cost of materials. And the main reasons why this is not in the contract for the general contractor's financial responsibility is that if you had these types of things in your before you went to bid in your bid documents for the contractor, and you said, hey, it's your responsibility fiscally. If anything changes, that is your fiscal responsibility. And so that could happen. Now, the other piece is if you order this stuff early, you've got to store it. And you also have to worry about insuring it potentially for loss. And you have to worry about any kind of damage that may occur and potentially void a warranty on it. Because if, let's just say it's a 30-day warranty from purchase, and you're a year out from installing that door, there's a possibility that the warranty will be null and void at that point in time. The other piece on that is if there is a change in design for whatever purpose in it, let's just say we had to do something with the framing and the doors, something happened from the design to construction, and there was a change in that door that we pre-ordered, those prefab fabs on it that were built are no longer usable. You can't return them. It's not like they're going to go back and go. So there's going to be a fiscal responsibility for rebuilding that new door. If you put those items into the contract, you would see the bid amount for the contracts historically go up to meet those possible items that could occur. They happen to occur here, and it's costing us $77,000. The reality is that our initial bid from Bobo would have probably been much higher than $77,000 for it if we had put these kinds of restrictions and qualifications on them prior to them ordering or getting the
Specifically,
equipment.
what kind of qualifications, just that he acquires lockdown materials at the beginning of the job?
In some of these
And we
materials.
didn't have anything in the contract to.
And I'll let ICS dig a little deeper on that. I'm just giving you that 9,000 foot overview of what my understanding is how this all works. So those adjustments, that could possibly happen, would definitely have increased our overall cost in the long run. We may not have needed it. And as again, 77,000 may be, a minor amount of that. And, so with that, with the design and the bidding of that, there's always a gap by the time you start construction. And so that gap is consistent or always there. Ours happens to be a little longer in some of our elements. We don't have a laydown yard. We don't have storage. We have all those other things. So it's very impactful on our contract. And with that, I'll stop and take any questions, and maybe either Tim or Dave can also help answer some of these
Maybe I
questions.
can pose that same question to Tim. In my experience, it is that the contractor should nail down his materials. If we had a statement in the contract that says that. They bid on the job for what's designed. And if they don't nail that down at the beginning of the contract and they buy part of it, and then the second half of it is no longer available, seems to me we shouldn't be taking the full brunt for that, because it should have been foreseen. Now, if our contract, if their legal position is that we're stuck with that, well, then so be it. But
Well,
that's not my normal.
before we hear from Dave and Tim, I would like, if we have written down, I know we all had, which is why we want to bring this back, we had several specific questions we had that we wanted answered. And so I would like to have restated, so they're clear, so we're clear, and the community is clear what our specific questions were in regards to into this matter.
Those questions being, why is it our responsibility?
I mean, there were several questions that I had posed.
Related to the panels themselves.
The panels themselves. There was a lot of questions we asked last board meeting in which we wanted to bring these guys back to answer them. I can roughly recall supposed to be noted, I can roughly recall one of mine being that, okay, it was originally supposed to be 2-inch thick panel. I understand if one manufacturer is not able to procure that or make that anymore, but then why are we not able to then find or outsource another company who can then do another 2-inch panel? It feels very hard to believe that there's not another company who could do it that would save us $77,000. I mean, I've done now construction in 2 organizations, and when one material is not available, you then find another material of similar grade, similar quality. So I would like to understand that. I believe there are other questions. I wish it could be clear what those were, but that was a big thing of why we have to shift from the 2-inch to the 1.5 inch.
So basically, could they have found a different manufacturer that would build that 2-inch door?
Well, correct. That had, not even, I think build is a strong word.
It is built.
I think, well, perhaps, but the 2-inch part isn't a custom part. That's what I'm saying. We're going from 2-inch to 1.5 inch. So I'm saying someone else, I find it very hard to believe that only one company manufactures a 2-inch thick panel, that we had to now go to 1.5 inch. So that was one of my questions. So Tim and Dave, one of you can answer that and help us understand.
I'll answer the question, Director Irwin, about the panel thickness and the change of manufacturer, and then Dave can address why that's the district responsibility. The panel was always specified to be 1.5 inches. It was not 2 inches. The width between the doors does not fit a 2-inch panel. So the panel that we specified for 1.5 inches thick, that manufacturer does not any longer offer that panel as a manufacturer. They offer a 1 inch and a 2 inch. So neither of those will work with the design that we have.
Tim, I want to stop you. Then why is it in our report and what we were told last time? Does it say specifically the original 2-inch thick panels intended for the doors have been discontinued, requiring a shift to 1.5-inch thick panels?
I can't answer that. It's not correct.
So then, what was the original?
The original specification was for an 1.5-inch thick panel. The manufacturer said when they were ordered by the contractor, they said, we don't make that any further, or we don't offer it. We have a 2-inch panel, and that does not work with the width of the assembly of the doors. So these are custom doors. There's nothing off the shelf about the fabrication or the composition of these doors. You don't make these every day, right? So these panels, when we researched who can provide a 1.5-inch manufactured panel, the manufacturer that we were working with and that we found as the best option provided smaller sizes of panel. So there were 4 panels per door rather than 2 panels per door. That required some additional flashing, additional blocking, additional clips to assemble the door on the frame, and additional flashing. So that, yeah.
So who was the one that was it your firm that chose the 1.5-inch originally, or how did 1.5-inch, if you're saying it's so customized, how did we shift, or how did we make that decision to make it a 1.5 versus 2 versus a 1?
So the 1.5 is a combination of being an insulated panel, and it is required by the Title 24 calculations for the insulation of the thermal capacity of the room. That in combination with the insulation in the cavity of that door. So, it's essentially when the doors are closed, they form a wall. So they need to provide thermal resistance. So we need to have that 1.5 inch thick. We knew that 2 inches are not going to work with the door. 1.5 inch is too narrow, and it doesn't span even that far. So the 1.5 inch is what we need. We did not find another manufacturer that provided an 1.5 inch panel that spanned the whole distance.
So Tim, you specified doors that were going to be custom made, and you specified the thickness of these panels and all of that, and the contractor orders them. This supplier supplies these doors and then doesn't have the remaining products to meet it.
No, it's not the same manufacturer. As I mentioned, these are custom assembled doors. The manufacturer of the door frames is different than the manufacturer of the panels that go on the frames.
Panels are custom also. Why are we paying $77,000 more for them? It just doesn't seem like it should. In my 34 years in construction, we never did that. I just don't understand why we have to pay for a manufacturer or a contractor that's supposed to deliver a customized product and then can't deliver. That should have been done right at the beginning of the contract. When they ordered these, installed these frames.
I don't know when the doors were not available. They were available when we specified them in 2019. By the time it was bid and the contractor had submitted shop drawings, it was, Dave, I don't remember, 2023. So 22, late 22. So it's been a period of time between when they were specified and when they were ordered.
When was it that, so if you're saying that it was in 2023, are you saying that it was in 2023, Dave, that they said, sorry, we don't make them anymore? Is that correct? That it was 2 years ago?
I don't know when exactly they found out that the 1.5-inch panels are not ready, but to back up to a little bit more generic explanation is, as Tim said, the door that's going to end up being hanging and sleeved on the side of the stage is we can use the word custom, but it's an assembled situation. It's like building a wall. And the components of that wall come from different manufacturers. The sliding and sleeving door system dictated what space that Tim had to work with. The codes also dictate the design limitations that he has to adhere to. When they initially designed, they looked for those solutions that could solve all of those problems, and they found it in the 1.5-inch panel that they presume would be available by the time we went to construction. It's not uncommon for products to become obsolete or unavailable in even a year or two from the time they're identified to be a component in the assembly. And that's what happened here. So it would be no different because things change all the time. And this, I know it's hard to believe, Ralph, but this is actually a minor change in the scheme of things. Things go obsolete all the time. And it could be a doorknob, it could be a light fixture, it could be an insulated panel. We were on one job where all the HVAC units specified for the project went obsolete because the Department of Energy changed the requirements that kicked in. And it was just a massive change. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yes, that unfortunately, those kinds of conditions, the responsibility falls to the owner. Mainly because you cannot put a contract clause, or you can't go out and bid a contract that isn't speculative, and that's what this kind of clause would be. It would be putting the burden on the bidding contractors.
You'd have to extend this to everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody made a mistake here. Either the design was bad, the contractor failed to get the materials lined up. I just don't believe it's the district's problem.
Well,
supplier I mean, I think there's got to be somebody who can supply the proper panels.
Well,
why are we paying so much for
and Dave, I mean, I do think you skirted a bit about the 2-year aspect that I asked about. So it sounds like, I guess what I'm a little frustrated on, I understand that materials change. I totally understand. And I do believe that at the end of the day, materials aren't available when there should be or whatever, and it's our responsibility. But what I don't quite understand is the 2 years. This was brought to us last month or a month and a half ago. And if this were 2 years ago, that sounds like an issue. And it sounds like I'm not understanding why we're addressing this 2 years after it was told, sorry, doesn't exist anymore. What's up with that?
We could put together a timeline, but remember this, like Tim said, they designed this in 2019. That takes time. And then we sat in permitting for 1.5 years, which takes time by the time we could bid the job. And then when the contract's awarded, the contractor doesn't order all the material for the whole project in the first month of the project. He orders it sequentially, especially when you have a tight site like we have, where there's no room to store it. And like Mike alluded to a little earlier, could you require that? I suppose you could. It would be very impractical to order everything, store it, secure it, hope it doesn't get damaged. It would raise warranty issues when you got to double handle it. It's just not a practical way to go.
Be that line. When they order it, the manufacturer can keep it until he delivers the doors. What I want to know is when the contract was bid, what was that, 2022? I believe the contractor should have lined up his materials when he bid on it, not wait a couple years later and say it's not here and I'm going to charge you another $77,000 to make up the difference. Somebody screwed up, and I don't think it was the district.
Wow. I agree with you. The district did not screw up. This is one of those circumstances that occurs on construction projects, especially long ones with a lot of elements. And this one has a ton of elements to it in terms of material, scope, etc.
That is understandable. For me, if that was known though 2 years ago, at least what I'm hearing, can you confirm? It sounds like this was known 2 years ago. So why is it being dealt with now?
I don't know that it was known 2 years ago. I wouldn't go so far as to say that.
So then
when the contract,
excuse me, what was the statement that you said then about 2023 that you and Tim were discussing about the doors not fitting or a material not available or the manufacturer not making anymore in 2023? That's what I understood, I heard.
Well, in some elements of the contract, especially where you have an assembly like we do here, we require the contractor to put together shop drawings, which means tell us how you interpret the contract, how you're going to build it, tell me the elements of it in compliance with the contract document. He can draw it all he wants, but when he goes to order that material, if he now finds out it's unavailable, then we have to go back to the drawing board.
Did he look to order the material?
I don't know that. I could ask him. And,
I'm pretty sure that
but I don't know.
questions last month.
I'm sorry?
I'm pretty sure, you don't know, Dave, but I'm pretty sure that was one of my questions last month. I wanted this was ordered because I think to Director Carhart's thing, as far as lining up materials, I think it's a pertinent thing to know when this was presumed to have been ordered.
Okay, yeah, I can find that out.
Nice to know.
If I missed that, I apologize. I did not even have it on my radar in terms of when materials were ordered.
Well, I think this is a question.
Fair
for
thing to
IS.
know.
It's fully on my
$1,000.
responsibility. Thank you. It is on my responsibility.
Mike, I wouldn't take the responsibility. I don't think this is a district issue.
No, it's my responsibility to get information
Contractor
before
and
it
a contract manager issue. In my opinion, I can't see the district paying for this when it was somebody else's oversight or failure to act. So I can't vote for the change order. Maybe we need to table it again and come back.
Yeah, Director Carter, I'd just like to comment on that real quickly. We don't know when the materials became unavailable. It very well could have been between when we specified it in 2019 and it was bid in 2022. So, it is, from our perspective and experience, it's a reasonable request on the contractor to cover the costs of the replacement panels and work to get them installed.
So
Tim,
my question on that would be, in when he ordered the doors, the door frames, which have been installed and paid for and ordered from this company, I mean, it should have been apparent at that time. He should have also lined up the panels. This to me is the contract responsibility.
Well, I think Director Carr, Tim, if you can rephrase or restate what you said, to me what I heard was that it sounded like you're saying that it is not unreasonable for the contractor to make up the difference for the new panels. Is that what I heard?
No, I heard it's not reasonable for them to not expect or to expect that they would have to pay for it.
Even depending in your summation on when they ordered?
They ordered the panels, as I understand it, when they were in sequence of installation. So as Director Mr. Aho and Mr. Dave, for some reason I stuttered on the Fukui. Apologize. The sequence of doors, was later than the installation of the frames. And as they mentioned earlier, there's really no laydown or storage areas for them to to access for that material and protect it. So it didn't seem out of line to us. And it didn't seem unusual. It's not the first time on this project that some materials have been discontinued before order.
Magnitude.
No.
And I would think that the contractor, the supplier, when he provided the frames, and if the panels were available, then he would have put that aside there, precluding the need for us to store them or anything else. He knew he was selling us a product, he knew what was specified, and the supplier failed to provide part B, you know?
It's
No, the
it's
doors-
not, go ahead, Dave.
The doors and the insulated panels are two different companies, are two different manufacturers.
Then it's
So
up to
one,
the contractor to make sure he's got both of them then in line. So Tim, I respect your architectural services for us over a many number of years. So I would like to know your opinion. Should this be paid?
Yes, I would recommend that it is.
Tim or Dave, so were the frames that these 1.5, not 2-inch panels, that were supposed to sit in, were the frames ordered and those were a go-ahead? And did we get possession of those frames?
yeah, those are the doors that you see hanging in there.
Those are the doors of the frame.
The doors themselves are the start of the assembly. You hang the doors up and then you start insulating the inside of it to comply with the codes. And the problem was, in this case, when the 1.5 were not available, that manufacturer produced them in a size to where 2 of their insulated panels would fit on one door, and that would insulate the whole door. And there's, as you know, multiple doors.
So there's doors and panels. Is that correct? Two separate things. Okay. And
It's like a wall insulation.
Understood. And then there's the frame. So we had already ordered the frame for those, and we already had the doors for those, and those were 2 different people. Is that correct?
So no,
you had the panels. Is there 3 things?
No, there's no frame to speak of in this case. The door system that's on the track that will sleeve, those were ordered because that's the same manufacturer. That door system is one manufacturer, okay? Now, in order to meet the insulation codes, the energy codes, we had to insulate each one of those doors so when it's closed, it provides the adequate insulation to the interior of the space. When Tim identified in the original design, the 1.5 panels, that particular manufacturer produced those 1.5 panels in a size where 2 panels would cover one door. So all the contractor had to do was install 2 panels per door. Well, when the 1.5 didn't became obsolete, we had to find a different provider. We found one. The only problem was they produced them only in a size big enough to where we needed 4 panels per door, which means a lot extra mounting and blocking and flashing per door.
Really quick, just let's say we approve this motion right now, hypothetically. How long do these things take to get fabricated and delivered?
Panels.
The things that were missing.
I don't know what the lead time on the replacement panels are.
We talked about that back when we found the panels. In talking with the manufacturer, they were going to expedite the manufacture of panels in 6 weeks. So we don't know what their lead time is now.
That would be good to know.
So we're just,
and then
but immediately would be good.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, okay, so but if we move this another month, okay, that's another 6 weeks.
That's quite.
Exactly.
When are these frames going to be ready for these panels? Are they ready now?
They've been ready for a while, yes.
Okay, so that's what we have to ask ourselves. What are we going to delay this another 30 days?
No.
Then it might be 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Do these things get back?
Exactly.
So let me.
It's true, but I will say, I don't appreciate that. I feel like these are important things that I think should have been brought to this meeting, that I don't appreciate that they aren't. And additionally, why are we ordering doors and not panels at the same time? Why wouldn't the doors and panels be ordered at the same time?
That sequence is up to the contract, so we cannot dictate
So
means and methods.
It's a point. That's the point to me of like, why would they not be ordering those at the same time when you need the panels for the, that would be.
I don't know that they did. I just don't know.
Director Irwin.
No, I'm not done. If you have to have the panels for the doors are already there. Why aren't the panels there with it? Why weren't they ordered at the same time? And if they are being ordered at the same time, which would be the logical thing, then it would be then known, okay, guess what? We don't have these. And so that is, at least for me, my serious frustration is that it seems like things are done very out of sequence to what I believe is Director Carhart's point, and that it should not have been done that way. And I'm still disappointed even more that Bobo is not here as the contractor to speak on this matter.
So can I?
So now, well, I'd like to hear now, Tim or Dave, please. You're welcome.
Yeah, Director Irwin, I was just going to say that it appears to us, and again, the contractor is responsible for sequence of assembly, but the way in which they installed that and then the different components, which include electrical work and other things that have to go around those doors, like stucco, and they needed to have the frames or the doors frame panels installed early, and they were going to install the panels and the insulation at a later time. So again, the storage of those is not available on site. So that was, I think that was the reason why the door panels were ordered at a later time.
So can I ask another line of questioning on the costs here? We have an additional 36, almost 37,000 in materials for the panels, against which we're given a credit. It looks like we're given a credit of about 19.6 thousand. So we're paying whatever that difference, we're paying an additional price for the other panels. Then we have another additional materials, which might make sense, of over $6,000. Flashing of over $31,000 called roofing commitment flashing. What the heck is that, and why are we paying that? And then they've got another 15,400 and something for additional labor for panel differences. Well, I mean, it would seem to me installing one panel is going to be about the same as installing another panel. So what's the explanation for all these costs they're billing us with?
So first of all, I'll start and then Dave can follow up. The panels are not the same. There, as we've talked about, there are 4 panels rather than 2. And so the backing and the blocking that goes in the door frames has to be mounted and assembled. The panels themselves require different types of clips and flashings than was part of the original design. And so all of that in terms of labor and time and materials accumulate to that amount. We've been through the estimate, it seems legitimate. We've been through it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. So with revisions. So we've gotten it as tight as we believe it could be.
Okay, and when they have a markup because of a change order, they're billing us another over $7,000, as if this was a change order that we asked for. That too seems kind of crazy to me.
Under the contract, they are entitled to a markup on any change, regardless of the cause of the change.
It's their fault.
Is that really covered in there, Dave? I feel like that's not covered.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
The fact that this is a change order specifically based on their action. This isn't a change order that we requested. This wasn't something new that we changed in the design. Nothing was changed with that.
It's considered a change condition. Like I said, the obsolete material is the change condition, which generated the extra work. If we thought that at all that the contractor was responsible for the error, we would not be paying them a change order. And that has occurred on this job as well. But in this case, as Tim said, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows when a material or a piece or a fixture or a door or anything else is going to go obsolete at any given time. And fortunately that
they didn't order the panel when they ordered the door, which is a very logical thing.
Well, I don't know that yet. I don't know. I haven't asked them that question.
My experience in construction is when a contractor bids the job, he knows where his materials are and where he's going to get them. He orders them or lines them up. And if he doesn't, if he fails to do that, his timing was off. And now we're
again, I can't speak to that. I can't speak to the timing of Bobo or the subcontractor or the vendor.
Well,
I can find out the best I can.
This has been a 3-year contract. And any reasonable person would assume that materials could change over a period of time. It's going to be a 2-year contract. But anyway, I just don't buy the argument we should be paying for all of this.
I have a question. For the credit that's listed on the Bobo change order, it says AWI. Is that all weather insulated panels? So is the credit not coming from Bobo, or the credit is coming from a manufacturer? And who is AWI, the new panel maker or the old maker?
I don't have the change order in front of me, but I believe the AWI was the original supplier, who then, they're no longer providing the material. So we get credit from them, and then the charge is from the new supplier.
That's correct.
So the new charge is for the materials, and then which Bobo is paying for, but then Bobo is also charging us for the roofing. I guess is the flashing. I don't know if that's a material. I'm assuming that's material and not labor, but I'm surprised the flashing is also $31,000. That seems like.
Well, I think that line item included the additional blocking.
Okay.
And other elements that you need to mount more panels than originally anticipated by the bid.
Now, have we checked out the possibility that the manufacturer of the doors, even though they've discontinued the panels we specified, could not produce the new panels by special order?
If you're asking if I called them personally, my answer is no, I did not.
Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I did not either. That's responsibility of Bobo to check that out. And
we paid this, I think somebody ought to call them and see if we can get those, pay them $76,000 to make them real quick.
$50,000. I mean, yeah, that is a really good. Is anybody else on the board surprised that Bobo doesn't seem to show up?
I never asked. Meetings. It's not Bobo's fault. I never asked.
Well, this situation is Bobo's fault, so I'm very surprised.
It was not represented as Bobo's fault in terms of how I interpreted what you asked me last meeting, and my misinterpretation. I apologize.
Well, I feel like anything with construction on it that they do, the $27 million we're giving them, I would like to see them at our meetings when it's related to that. So
I apologize for my misinterpretation.
Understood.
We're only giving Bobo $23 million.
Sorry, it feels like more. I apologize.
Okay, now either we approve it and move forward, or we deny it, ask for more information, delay it another 30 days. But I think we talked about it as much as we possibly can.
Well, it's raining, and we know that it's not like we can't. To me, delaying, I think at least a call. I don't know if we can do it where it's we authorize a certain amount if the original manufacturer would do it or something, because if neither of these guys have called, who knows if Bobo has. I think it's a very fair thing that a company will absolutely special order it if they could even 50, I mean, like,
Yeah, give them
I would.
50,000 to do it, and then they
100%.
do it. They'd be crazy not to.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just because they discontinued a product doesn't mean
doesn't
they
mean they
can't.
won't do it,
Yeah.
especially special words. I'd be more
I
inclined
think,
to
I'd rather delay this a month than to vote against it.
Or have a special meeting.
Not the same thing.
Yeah. Tim, did you want to say something?
Only that time is of the essence, I guess, is probably what I would say.
We can have a special meeting if
I would prefer that.
You can afford a special meeting for
I
$77,000.
think
Can we do it next week?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Can we meet next
I-
week?
We
To make
could,
it-
we can, I have to make certain that it's available, of course, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the big question in my mind is, can the original manufacturer produce these on special order for less than 77,000?
That's.
And then Bobo would be.
I-
and then-
I can certainly ask those questions and we can find out. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but Bobo is a very responsible contractor. I would think they would have explored all of their options at the time. I would like to point out one other thing, that this project has had a number of changes. As you are well aware, we're over probably $2 million in changes. And we're talking about a $77,000 change. The danger here is, like Tim said, is not the dollars so much as it is the time. As you well know, we are working feverishly to get this thing done, get the building enclosed, weathertight, inspected, at the same time as securing all of the site work that we have yet to finish.
We can next week if necessary, so we can deal with the time. What I want to know is maybe the contractor has not told the original manufacturer that he can give them a substantial amount of money to come up with the specified panels. That's what I'd like to see you do within the next week.
And I think the important question when you talk to Bobo is, or when they talk to the manufacturer, is what are the timelines on getting these doors? Whether we go with a custom and offering them more money or whatever, or we continue with the same path we are, is there a timeline difference in those two?
Yeah, we want both.
And I guess the third question is, if the panels didn't go in by June 1st this year, would we still be able to get occupancy?
No.
Okay.
You might have some people living there.
Okay, so the direction is, to please respond to our questions and then we find a date, sometime next week to do a special meeting. So perhaps Wednesday or Thursday, I don't know, we can.
Monday or Tuesday.
On that committee.
I just want to make sure that we keep it moving. We also need to make sure though that we provide notice to the public on when our meeting happens.
No, we're all doing special meeting.
Oh, all of us?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's not a committee meeting.
No,
We have all 5 of us need to do it. Okay, so,
Just need a quorum though.
You need three board members.
yes. So that concludes our consent calendar. Or no, I'm sorry, that was unfinished business. That was 7.1, it is still unfinished. We continue one more week. We will move to agenda items 8, which is new business, starting with 8.1, monthly Fair Oaks Youth Advisory Board.
Something happened.
Good evening. I hope you all had a good week. My name is Matthew and I'm chair of the Fair Oaks Youth Advisory Board. Last meeting was a shorter meeting and we had on Zoom due to weather complications. We went over the Easter extravaganza and the gift collections every year. We were a little bit saddened that the family dance night was canceled. We're all looking forward to that. And lastly, we had the Grange signups, which was last name very well.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, we'll move to item 8.2, discussion and possible action on approval of future location of the Fair Oaks Chicken Festival.
thank you. I'm going to let the preparation team, this one.
So Sabrina has actually,
Hi, hello board. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Sabrina.
Hi guys, sorry I'm not there in person. I apologize. I'm taking a couple days off, but I'm super, it's a really big board report for me. So I just want to make sure I have all the details for you guys and answer all the questions. So what we're talking about is approving Fair Oaks Park as the location for the annual Fair Oaks Chicken Festival. We did speak with the Community Resource Committee, and they have given our recommendation and support on that also. As you guys know, the event was moved to Fair Oaks Park because of the construction in the village. Since having it in Fair Oaks Park, it's amazing. I hope that you guys have all attended. We've been able to bring what we had in the village to the park and then expand upon that. And we've cut back on costs significantly and staff time. So with the construction coming to an end, and we're looking at where we're going to host the event this year, because the construction has kind of modified the layout of the village. It does change. We can't just bring it back. So clearly some things would have to change. So I can go through, the venue analysis, or if you guys have specific questions, kind of up to you guys. There was some included attachments.
So, being one of the Community Resource Development Committee members, John and we discussed the idea of having a split venue. It was not really addressed other than a half of a sentence in the staff report. The idea that perhaps Chicken Festival would include something going on in the village on, say, the Friday night in the theater, in the clubhouse, or whatever, and then the big event with all the other activities, the vendors and all of that happening in the park. That's been kind of glossed over. There's a lot of people, including merchants in the village, that like having that attention drawn to the. When it was started, that was one of the two criteria for doing it in the village. So I'd like to see that explored more than just, not your sentence says, with staff exploring a prelude or extended event in the village. I'd like to see that fleshed out a little more. I know the staff wasn't really excited about it, and I was concerned about the extra staff having cost for that, but that would not necessarily entail a big pre-closure and a lot of expense. So I'd like to see that fleshed out a little more, discussed tonight.
Well, staff went to extreme lengths to create a 6-page document that basically that was included with the but I was initially against it, but once we talked it through, you can secure the perimeter of it better, and on and on. I think at least for the time being, it should stay there at some point. If that, things change, maybe it can come back in the village.
And Ralph, Ralph. Sorry, guys. And to Ralph's point, so sorry about that. I didn't mention that in the recommendation. So staff would be exploring something happening in the village. If you remember that very first year when we were back in Fair Oaks Park and we came back after COVID, we did do an event in the village. It was called the Bach Party. That was still when everybody was wearing masks and everyone was really social distancing. So it wasn't a huge event, but we have a ton of ideas of what we could do in the village as a little extended event or a secondary event, a kickoff event, but we have to be really aware and really thoughtful because all of our staff are needed for that day of large event. So we can't do anything gigantic the day before. Especially since we use all of our equipment at the event. We set up in advance, so we can't take it back and forth. Staff are working 14 to 17 hours, and everybody works. So we just have to be mindful of whatever we do in the village, which we do want to do. I think it's great. If you remember before, probably 10, 12 years ago, we used to do a concert and a kickoff to Chicken Festival on Friday night. So it's not like we haven't done, a kickoff or a prelude event previously, and it's definitely doable. I just want to be mindful of the staff and the equipment, finances, all of those things. So absolutely.
When you raised that issue at the committee meeting, it was suggested that maybe the event in the village could be handled maybe by a community partner, like the chamber, the Rotary, or the or somebody else, so that it didn't infringe on staff time. So I'd like to see that explored. It would be a great opportunity for perhaps the chamber or Bovec or somebody else to do an introduction in the village. We have $23 million with the new facilities. It seems like it's crazy to abandon them. There are many of the activities that have to be done in the park because of the attraction and the parking issue. We have tons of vendors. We have events and activities going on that could never come back to the village.
Well, but I think
Absolutely. So if we would definitely, yes, working with community partner group would be amazing. What we'd want to do is probably put it out for an RFP of some sort or request for like, what people would suggest and kind of seeing what they have for, volunteers and staffing and what kind of equipment, all those things. So, but absolutely, I think working with the community partner group volunteers, we're going to have to.
Thank you.
And I want to remind.
I was just going to say that, maybe it's some scenario where we do something a little bit more adult focused in the village.
Yes.
And kids at Fair Oaks Park and have two sort of, quasi different venues. And then the other thing we were talking about too, just for the local community, I think that's on everybody's radar, is doing some sort of reoccurring, whether it's a crafts and wine night or something like that, just to start getting people flowing back into the village.
Yeah.
And one important.
Absolutely.
One important thing with doing any event in our facilities, our investment, we do have to have professional staff there on site, and we also have a cleanup and opportunity that we have to do. We can't let it happen just spontaneously with volunteers. That's going to require some of our professional staff to be involved at a high level. And that's going to, again, impact a lot of other things. I think we need to do it. I'm just making that point.
Lots of planning involved.
I think we need to do it.
The other thing though, I think echoing a lot of what you're saying, Sabrina, if you can hear me, I really like the idea of doing some sort of concert thing on that Friday night, right? Maybe it's a few different acts and you make it a fun evening thing from 5 to 9, whatever. You make that in the village as the kickoff. And I think there's opportunity to get that sponsored as well to help pay for that staffing, pay for the extra hands, pay for the hours. So that would be something I'd like to see investigated, Sabrina.
Absolutely.
So to keep us back on track as to where the Chicken Festival itself will take place, we do have a public comment. Barbara Beck has asked to speak on the Chicken Festival.
I just wanted to say that I'm disappointed that you are going to leave it up there in the park. I mean, when you started the project in the park, you said that all the events would come back to the village. And, I understand it's getting bigger, but I don't understand how you can call it a chicken festival up there. There's no chickens there. The chickens are here. So that's my point.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that.
Volunteer.
Are there any more comments on having it moved to, or having it remain in Fair Oaks Park?
This is just for this year, correct? We're not making
Yeah.
a decision like
I believe so.
in perpetuity.
So I'd like to speak. I forgot to. I don't know. I filled it out.
Yeah, you just give it.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So I'm Nan Danford, and I'm a longtime resident in this owner of Milford here. I just want to echo what Barbara said. Grew up here, Chicken Festival, well, wasn't there when I was little, but I'm also very disappointed. I mean, the whole thing about Fair Oaks and its charm, just the quaint downtown area, the chickens, all that stuff, and having it here is really awesome. I encouraged, and I also agree with Ralph that, $20 million or however many going into this thing and to abandon it and keep everything out there when we were told at the beginning that it was going there temporarily and then everything would come back. So if the Chicken Festival is going there, what else is going to be there? Is Christmas in the Village going to be over there? I mean, the Fiesta's already gone. It's like all of the traditions that we had in our community seem to be going away, and I don't think that's good for our community. But I am encouraged to hear that there is a plan to bring things here, and an idea that I have. I love the concert and all that, but David, when he had the hardware store, he did a few years, he did a chicken cook-off. That might be kind of a fun thing, a barbecue chicken contest or something. That could be something that could be done here in the village as well. So those are my comments.
Yep. Thank you.
No, we look forward to reopening the village, using it as much as we can.
Is this with this, because it doesn't speak to having having like a component in the village, can we potentially, I mean, I would happily love to amend this to have it say that something with, you know, the main weekend event is in Fairfield, but having a component in the village on Friday or Friday.
I don't think you have to amend anything. There's been no motion yet. And my motion would be to approve this year being in the, having the event, in the Fair Oaks, much like a big community fair with an opening component in the village the evening before.
Well, I would second that.
I just want to make it clear that we're only voting for this year.
Yes.
Because I do feel like we may run into some construction issues anyway,
Yeah.
but I'm not for leaving it there. Period.
Yeah, this would be, my motion would be for this coming year, that's how we do it. We'd have a component in the village, but the main event with all the vendors and the cornhole thing and all that stuff would be in the park that can be accommodated.
Yeah.
2025.
For
Yeah.
2025.
And I seconded that.
All right, any other comments from? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Lauren. All right, we will,
Thanks, guys.
we'll move to our next item, which is a receive and file. So there's not an action item, but this is on 8.3 village parking presentation and update.
Thank you. I have to get my keyboards. Thank you, board. What this is this is about managing parking around the park. What I want to do tonight is give you the same presentation that we gave to two community outreaches, including the one on February 8th at McMillan Center and the one on February 13th at McMillan Center. One was a Saturday, one was a Wednesday. We had about 30 people at each one of those. They saw this exact presentation as well. So I'm going to give you a little background, some of the challenges about the park currently, and then some of the management opportunities that we are investigating. This is staff driven. I want you to be aware of that. That's why we're going through these early outreaches. There's no action asked right now of the board other than input and potentially next steps. So here's the background, and this is going to take a little bit, but it's very important that we understand the background of some of the elements that will affect us as we continue to go forward when we open the park. Special districts like Fair Oaks Recreation and Park Districts are established to serve specific functions within a defined area. And have distinct legal and operational boundaries. Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District can only offer services that are authorized by enabling legislation, specifically Public Resource Code Section 5780. So this is a legislative issue. Services are limited to parks and recreation. Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District cannot provide police, fire, public works, housing, economic development, to name a few. All zoning, permitting, and land use decisions are under the jurisdiction of Sacramento County. Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District lacks the authority to approve or deny development projects or enforce zoning regulations. The Park District's financial resources are strictly allocated to Parks and Recreation Services. Funds such as those from Measure J bonds are dedicated and cannot be used for purposes outside of the district's scope. Unlike city or county governments, Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District does not possess broad governmental powers and must operate within its defined mandate. Essential services such as public safety, street maintenance, and utilities are provided by the county or other designated entities, not Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District. We must follow state law and county regulations which direct what we can and cannot do. Any attempt to expand services beyond the authorized scope requires formal approval through state legislative changes, and unauthorized expansion could result in legal and financial consequences. We are committed to enhancing community parks and recreational opportunities, but must navigate within our legal and financial constraints. Understanding these limitations is essential for maintaining compliance, financial integrity, and focused delivery on our mission to serve the community effectively. Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District was established on October 8, 1945. That key legislation that allowed that establishment was Public Resource Code Section 5780, which I mentioned earlier. In that code section, it says that recreational park districts are to provide local park and recreational services. Public Resource Code, again, Chapter 4, 5780 through 5791.7, 507080B says, is the intent of the legislature to create and continue a broad statutory authority for a class of special districts that provide community and recreation park and open space facilities and recreation services within specific boundaries and under local control. You're the local control. Quick timeline on how this all is coming up. November 2018, the voters approved Measure J, funding the renovation of the parks and facilities. In April 2018, we started the public outreach with the community to gather input and discuss plans for the park and facility renovations. July 2018, the park and facility design was completed. Finalization of the design in the park and its facilities were ready for construction. In October 2018, we began construction on the facilities and the park. In March 2020, we had the COVID, which obviously has impacted the project. We are now estimated to finish late spring 2025. That would be this spring. Here's the ballot language that was on Measure J. This is by the yes and no boxes that you check. This is the sentence that was there. Measure J, if approved by the voters, would allow the Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District to incur bonded indebtedness up to a maximum amount of $26.9 million. The proceeds from the issuance and sale of such general obligation bonds could only be used to finance acquisition and improvements of real property for district purposes. That last 3 words is incredibly important. Projects that were included in the bond language. The bond language is the longer text that is on the ballot. Most people don't read it, but this is one of the elements that was on it. Modernization, renovation, deteriorating recreational facilities at Village Park, Plaza Park, and Clubhouse in the Village, including upgrading infrastructure and improving safety and security. It was in Village Plaza Park in the Clubhouse area. So we're talking about this area right here. Inside the dotted line on your screen there, that is the parking areas we're talking about. There are 91 parking areas in that area. There were 70 before we did the renovation for the park. So we had 21 spots. Granted, some of those are ADA and some of those are electric vehicle charging stations. But it is a total of those 91 parking spots inside the facility in Plaza Park. There's your aerial view. You can see the Village Park there in the center with brown area. If you look, and I don't have a pointer here, but if you look just slightly to the left of that picture, 1 block, 2 blocks, the second block in the middle, you'll see an open gray patch there, right there. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That is the AT&T parking lot. That right now is, that FOVEC has put that together for employee parking, in the village. So there's a lot that currently is available for employees in the village, and there's 60 plus parking spots in there. So here's some of the challenges that we're currently facing, and these are current challenges. This is a picture of Fair Oaks Boulevard on Monday, January 13th, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. There are at least 2 employees parked cars in this lot. These are employees of the village. I won't point the cars out, but there may be more, but I know that there's 2 there. And you can see there's 1 spot available currently at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Monday. This is California Avenue on Friday, September 22nd, 2023. So that's a couple of years ago. We've been watching this project and watching this happen for 3 years now on what happens with parking in the village. This is at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. There's no construction workers there parking. They've all left. And this is what is available at 4:30 on a Friday with approximately 3 spots open right there. This is California Avenue on Friday, January 10th, 2024. That should be 2025, excuse me, at 3 o'clock, so it's this January. There are no spots available. 3 o'clock on a Friday. Currently, there's no parking enforcement or management of the parking in the village or the park. This sign that you're seeing here, this sign that you're seeing here, it is one that's up. It's one of the few that remains here in the village. It's currently up. It says 2-hour parking, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays excluded. So the parking enforcement that we've had in the village, which is non-existent, but that sign, if you look at the times again, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. So who's currently using the parking around the park? People visiting the village to shop and dine. Very important. We want that to happen. That's who's using the parking around the park right now. Also, who's using it? Employees and owners of businesses. It's convenient and it's close, and there's no monitoring of that parking. People heading down to the American River Parkway for a hike, walk, whatever. Great thing to do. Right? We want them to do that. And people coming from the Sac Metro bus. There's in the upper left picture, left-hand bottom corner there's a bus stop there for Sac Metro, and it comes right through the village, and people get on the bus there. So there's other facilities that are going to be impacting parking soon, and these are all across the street from the park, directly across the street from the park. Slocum House, which will come online sometime soon. The Hut, which is online but will be more activated, and that's on Park Avenue. And then Palm Street Brewing, which again is right across the street from the park. All of these are going to continually add additional elements of parking in the village. And none of those are required to have increase in parking by the county regulations. Again, we are not responsible for zoning. Busiest time for all of these parking areas is after 5 p.m. Remember that sign, 8 to 5. After 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. and specifically Friday and Saturday evenings. When we open our facilities up, our busiest times will be exactly during those times. The same time as the brew pubs, the Palm Street, the restaurants, everything else like that. They're all hitting the busiest times at that moment. We'll be adding approximately 150 to 200 vehicles into the village during those times. So the parks and facilities will be very busy during that time with concerts, theaters, classes, and rentals. So what are we proposing the staff to do is to somehow manage that parking. I'll be honest, there's nobody that I'm aware of that is for paid parking, including myself. But parking has to be managed. So managed parking, it's to enhance accessibility for park users. Remember, that our funds are dedicated for parks and park users. Secondary, visitors to the village. And then third, support the local businesses. All three of those have to happen. There can't be one without the other. So we have to align with Measure J. That ensures that the parking space improvements that were funded by Measure J, that's about $1 million worth of improvements just for the parking, primarily benefit park visitors, aligning with the bond's intent for real property improvement. Now, I did visit with our bond attorney this week, and we discussed this because I did want to be in compliance, all legal compliances with the bond funds. They're aware of what we're working on. They do agree that some kind of management system should be in place, and that our approach that we'll be talking about here in a bit will what they feel will qualify or will ease their concerns about the funds being used appropriately. So here's the benefits of managed parking. Managed parking can increase the turnover of parking spaces, allowing more people to access the park, programs, and businesses throughout the day. Managed parking will encourage drivers to vacate spaces, helping reduce the congestion caused by drivers circling the park, looking for parking. Managed parking can provide more drivers with a fair chance to find parking near their destination rather than allowing a few vehicles to occupy spaces for extended periods. When an employee parks in one of those spots, they're there longer than 2 hours. It could be up to 4 hours to 6 hours. Managed parking, the vehicle turnover can increase the number of visitors to an area, potentially boosting sales for local shops, cafes, and services as more customers can stop by. So what are we looking for in our managed parking? What we look for in this was a variety of payment options, including most major credit cards, Google Pay, Apple Pay, and PayPal. What's really important here is we are not looking at putting a meter on the sidewalk. We are not looking at individual meters around the park. As a matter of fact, we're not even looking for a pay station around the park. These will be signs saying, here's how you can pay for your parking. And it will be a mobile type of app. Now, we recognize that some people don't want to download an app and pay for parking. So there would be a phone number available to make parking payments for people without a smartphone. If they don't even want to do that, in this situation, they could pay in person at the district office. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They can fill out a little envelope, put their dollar, whatever they have to in there, and go on their way. If it's after hours, there can be a drop box there. It can be dropped off there at the office. So for any method of payment, we can work that out. The other pieces about it is how convenient can we make this for the customers that are going to utilize these spots if we do manage parking by a pay-to-park system. We could have a text and email alert to notify a user when your parking will expire. You'd have the ability to add time to existing parking sessions to avoid running back to feed the meter. So you don't have to put another penny into the meter or dime or whatever. I don't have any change in my pocket today. I know if I had change, I probably wouldn't be able to park. So I don't think that a paid meter is something that we want to see. So here's the part that our bond attorneys agreed would work for keeping us in compliance with the Measure J language and with our government code 950. That we would provide a code to event attendees and facility rentals that allows for free parking. This code would be specific to the event and would expire when the event is over. The code would only work if a parking spot is available. No guarantee of spots. So we're not closing it off to businesses. We're not closing it off to visitors. We're saying attendees, here's free parking. And if there's a spot available, that's great. This is just a sample of a parking fee schedule, so you get an idea of what potentially it could cost. Again, this is just a sample, it's just a potential. It would apply to parking spots around Plaza Park only, around the park property only. It would be daily, 9 to 9, something very simple to understand, not a ton of ambiguity on this. So we would propose something like an hour free. Second hour, $1 to $2. Third hour, $2 to $3. Fourth hour and beyond goes up a little bit more, $4 to $5. So an overall parking cost, if you stayed in one of those parking spots for 2 hours, it would be around $1 or $2. If you stayed for 3 hours, it could be $3 to $5. 4 hours or more, 7 to 12. Now the maximum daily rate of 12 to 17, and a non-paid violation fee of 15 to 20. And I've heard from folks saying that's way too low at those ends there. But it's really not a punitive issue here. All we want is people to move. We just want them to move. If someone were to not pay because something happened, we don't want to stick it with a $30 to $50 ticket. That would definitely discourage them from visiting us again. But if you gave them a courtesy notice, maybe the first time, said, hey, pay, remember next time pay. And if they don't pay it that second time or third time, then you give them a non-pay violation ticket of $15, $20. It's not about the money. It's about trying to get people to park and be there and to turn over those parking spots and not violate those spots. So there's other users that could participate and use those. So this is just a slide about our public engagement. I mentioned that we have received some comments via my email. We forwarded them on to you. We shared a summary of comments with you in your board packet from the 2 outreach meetings. We did not give them verbatim, but we gave you a summary. If you'd like verbatim, you can have them. You've also got the links to both of those meetings, so you can see the meetings and you can hear the passion behind the folks that participated. I want to be respectful of everybody that was there. I did ask at the beginning that everybody be civil with their comments and respectful, and it was amazing how wonderful the community was in a contentious type of issue like parking. So it was a wonderful experience to be able to hear that. Again, this is the proposal. We have one more attorney hurdle that we're looking at right now. It's about some boundary issues and stuff, and a little bit about the enforcement. We'll have more to talk about next time we meet, once we have that information. But as I did mention, between the outreach meetings and today, we did talk to bond counsel, and bond counsel is fine with this type of proposal for being able to stay in compliance with the bond language. So with that, thank you. And I can answer any questions here. I'm pretty sure there's probably some folks here for comment as well.
Thank you, Mike. I attended the first one, as you know, just to sit in and hear. And it was an excellent presentation and the questions were very good. And that is an excellent presentation. One thing you mentioned that didn't mention tonight was if that were adopted by the county on a larger scale, we would integrate our program with theirs or work together. So it was all one system.
If something did happen around the area more encompassing, we would definitely try and incorporate into that. We're not into the parking enforcement business.
And I talked to one former board member, Brandon Rose, who had a good comment. He said, when you go to eat lunch or something, and it might be more common in most places, that maybe if the first 90 minutes were free, that would be better.
Yeah. I mean, extending that free time, I think we need to have a free time. We're going to propose a free time no matter what. If we go that far, if we get into a proposal phase. But yes, I 100% agree that there has to be a free time in there. So.
Something else that I attended the second meeting, so the evening meeting, and one of the questions that was asked, which I thought was really important, and I just make sure is part of the record, was someone asked, what is going to happen if there is extra money? What would you do with the extra money? And I think that's an important question for you to answer. So you can kind of do that.
That was a question, and thank you for bringing that up. You know, we would propose if there's any additional funds that they be used for improvements. Let's just say an example would be a garbage can near the edge of the park that obviously the public can use, and we would be able to take care of that garbage can. Let's just say Christmas decorations in the village park. Let's just say banners on the light poles promoting activities that are going on in the village. those types of things that are more village overall focused than individual park focused, we would propose that any additional funds would stay right there and not, for an example, be used in Phoenix Park.
Would you go so far as to make them restricted? Would you propose that?
That could be done, and I would definitely want that kind of approach as well. So again, this isn't about money. Could there be some extra money? Maybe, but it's not going to be a ton of money.
You know, I think the biggest thing that was interesting in seeing that was I was actually surprised at how low people were in favor of it. Not because I think necessarily people want to pay parking, but I think more the fact of as a user group wanting to ensure that overall I have parking. I think we do see that parking is used far more than just for guests in the parks. And so I think it's a really interesting thing that I would, honestly love to see this as an agendized item to vote on, and honestly see community members and hear from more of them and for them to be aware of it, because, I'm very curious at the end of the day if folks, taxpayers don't care and they'd rather have parking that we're kind of a good neighbor on and we allow open parking. And they would just prefer that versus the fact that this is going to make things even busier, and it probably will make it less parking. But if they prefer not to have it managed, which pay is probably the best way to manage it, I mean, I'd be really curious to hear that, because it sounds, at least based on those results, that is what the community would, at least from those results, what they would prefer, which I'm surprised by, to be completely honest with you. I don't necessarily know if they fully understand that, but I would definitely prefer to hear from the community to really get that, obviously, before voting. It's not it's not agendized to vote on tonight, but I think it would be good to have more members to hear from to make sure they understand it. That's what they would prefer.
That was what I heard at the community meeting that I attended. It was very, very vocal, and the choice was really nothing, do nothing, and then wait. Some people suggested do nothing, wait and see. How bad is it? Because the thought is, at least the rationale or the logic that I heard was, no matter what is done, there will not be enough parking spots. So no matter what, regardless if people are paying for parking, there will still be people that go and park in the neighborhood and park in front of people's homes. There will still be people that have to park all the way down around the corner near Players, have to walk hike up the hill to get into the village. And so there will probably be, as long as people can behave themselves, we're not seeing people getting upset or just circling around and around and around. I would love to see, I think that lot that Bobec is contracting with AT&T has a lot of potential. I would love to see if that lot could be, say, open to the public and maybe made into a reserved parking lot where the public, you could reserve yourself a spot. I would pay $10 to go park in that parking lot. I'd pay $15 to park in that parking lot. If I knew that I could drive in, get a parking space, and then walk up the hill to go to the show at the theater or go to the brew pub. And so I feel like that would be a really great thing for us to utilize. That's not our property though. Right. So we don't have control over that. We only have control over the spots around the village. And I would like to see the spots around the village be prioritized for park users, because that's what people chose. They wanted to have that.
And that's the issue, right? Is if we have someone wanting to rent it out, doing an event, something like that, and then their guests, whomever, can't find a spot because the users are parking there that are not parking for an event that's happening in the parks, and that's where you have this juxtaposition, and it does make it really tough because I understand if there isn't anything in the parks after it's dusk and our parks are closed, but if we are utilizing it and they are using our beautiful amphitheater or whatnot or black box, then it can create a real problem.
One of the problems that, I think Mike alluded to it, one of the meetings was we get new businesses, for example, the Palm Brewery, that are not required to provide any additional spaces. And
we've been, all the improvements to our facilities, we want to be sure if we rent out a hall for a wedding or something, that the people have some space. So we might want to look at, as a district, having some lease agreement with somebody, whether it's with the Bovic lot or with somebody else here, and also look into, with events like that, having some kind of shuttle system. Because, and security at wherever the lot is. People park over at the AT&T lot and it's night, they want to know they can be safe over there to go back and that their car's not being vandalized. There are other places that, we could, lease some space, and, have a shuttle. But we're going to, if our facilities are going to be successful, and we want people to rent them or buy tickets, we gotta have the parking.
Because nobody's going to, and I think that's something that the community has to understand.
And the other thing is, I think we still ought to consider working with the county on getting some economic development help in either an at-grade lot or a parking structure.
Yeah.
The community might want to consider floating a bond to fund something like that, or call it the P-bids that are local.
I think that's a really good point of just making sure people understand that the parking situation that is in the village was not created by the park district. We've allowed for a lot of our parking to be utilized by community members, by other restaurants, bars, what have you, but that really is a county issue that I think it would be great for people who are so interested in coming to our meetings and giving us comments that it would be a really wise idea to give that then to our county supervisor, because that really should be something. Many of us who have served on the CPAC, understand what was created in the village, and it needs some serious updating, and parking being one of them. And I just want to commend Bovic for all of the work they've done when it comes to the lot. I think that's absolutely incredible, and I'm grateful to that, and our community should be as well.
So we do have
Few conversations I have with business owners is that lot is not being utilized whatsoever. Managers, of restaurants are telling me that their waitresses and hostesses and employees are not going to walk in the dark around the corner. It's not safe. I think there's things that mitigate that to make that a safer feeling getting there, but I think that needs to be addressed.
But
That's our jurisdiction. The other thing is growing up here on any Saturday morning, as soon as this weather gets great, all these parking lots all these parking spots in front of the clubhouse and up down the street are taken for people riding their bikes on the bike trail. They're going for 6 to 8 hours. That's going to create its own issue. So my thing is, yes, we obviously need to address this issue in the parking, but more importantly, if we do something, the enforcement is going to be the biggest part. Otherwise people are just going to run rampant and it's not going to matter.
Well, and parking was a problem before.
Always,
This is not an
always.
issue.
You
Parking
come up in the village on a Saturday morning and literally.
But I do think, at least for me, I just want to make it clear that while I empathize absolutely with employees of other businesses not feeling safe to park in other places, that is not our jurisdiction to figure out how to get them
But if we
from
can
their
work
parking
together,
spot
it
to that.
relieves pressure for everybody.
Sure, but I do think that's very much a county situation that it would be great for the community of Faros, and we're happy to sign off on that, and we've discussed that multiple times, to get the county really involved in that situation, in the park situation, which it should fall square in. Hasn't happened. It should.
I want to mention something too that happened about 15 years ago. There used to be parking all the way down to the bridge, but there was a rash of car burglaries, break-ins and things, and then people were parking there to access the parkway. That too could be part of a managed system. We had problems over at Bannister Park, 20 years ago, where we managed that by eliminating parking. But here on by the bridge, what happened was the county shut down all on-street parking from the bridge all the way up to our district office here. Now, maybe that can be reversed if it were properly managed, but again, you know, there's multiple uses of parking in the village, not nearly enough. And if we ever want to aspire to have the kind of restaurants and shops here that we've always, you know, looked forward to, we're going to have to deal with the parking.
And at a county
level,
wide
a cooperative level.
And we
cooperative
do have
level.
great restaurants and bars in the village.
We do have a couple individuals that like to speak tonight, so I'd like to get to them. The first one I have for public comment is Kurt Shearer. If you could please come up, please.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. We were at the meeting a week ago, and as I said then, we moved into the village in 1999. And so we've lived here a while and seen at least a few things that have gone on. And yeah, parking has always been a problem. It always will be a problem. And, you know, this is not going to fix it. It's not going to create more spaces. It's only going to make it more annoying for those of us who live here and other people that want to visit routinely to now pay for parking. One of the things that was mentioned was turnover. The other thing that was mentioned in almost the same sentence was the ability to extend your time from wherever you are using an app. So those two things do not solve each other's problem. I mean, if you want more turnover, but you make it effortless for somebody to extend their time, that's not going to fix the problem. Also, we paid for this. We paid for this through this bond measure. We are continuing to pay through it through our property taxes. And now if we want to come down and eat, we're going to pay for parking. It seems like a problem. Wish I had a pen. That's okay. And I just don't think this is the right solution. It is not going to. It's not going to fix the problem. That was even admitted by staff at the last meeting. It's not going to fix the problem. Also, I'm a little concerned with a subtle but seemingly apparent refocus of we as a community are now here to, in part, support a rental facility. There's been a lot of mention of, well, we have to provide parking for people that rent things out and people that do that. And yeah, I don't think that anybody mentioned at the original outreach meetings before the bond measure, hey, we're going to charge for parking. And our focus for making the facility here is to provide other people to come in and rent it. And so everything is going to support that. I'm not saying that's all that's happening here, but I see a subtle refocus of we have this facility. We now have to sacrifice as a community to support that facility to outside users. While that is important, I don't think that can drive what happens. We live here, some of us for a very long time, and we want this to be our little village. Not that we don't want growth. We love the restaurants that are here. We love the businesses that are here. But we didn't move here to support the facility. So I am, and many others are not in favor of this. Yeah, there's a parking problem, but this isn't going to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Kirk Lever.
Evening. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to hear our views this evening. During I was at the last meeting, great presentation, but there were some details and some questions that weren't quite asked because some of these things are still getting fleshed out during the planning period, and I understand that. But one of the things I'd like to know is what is the data and the research that has been supporting this proposal that actually points out that what this plan will do will actually work? Will it actually solve a problem, or will it just make more? I feel that in the past, well, first of all, the actual facility has not opened yet. We don't know what the attendance is going to be like. We don't know what the rental space is going to be like. We don't really know what kind of capacity problem we're going to have yet. We're going to have it, but we don't know what it's going to be or whether this will actually be able to fix it. So I'm respectfully proposing that maybe we put this on hold for a minute and wait until the park is open. We can kind of get more of an idea of the capacity problem that we have. They can have more details, and then maybe, if we need to come back and make more decision. I think the community should be open to this proposal, but I also feel that the board should maybe be a little more patient in moving forward the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Tracy Martin.
Hello. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I agree that the parking needs to be managed. It's very interesting to hear about it sounds to me like the biggest issue in terms of people staying a long time are employees and folks riding their bikes, both of which I think can be managed differently than charging an area for employees to park, QR codes that help direct people to extensive parking that's on the other side of the bridge. And maybe even just non-charged, the signs that just say you can only stay here for 2 to 3 hours, and then having to manage that, making sure that we maybe initially warnings, but eventually tickets are given for people who push that envelope. I think that the problem with the meters, it penalizes businesses right off the bat. If I go to lunch, I know I've got 90 minutes free. I'm more inclined to climb back in my car and drive away after that 90 minutes, as opposed to wander down and look at some of the cool shops and some of the other restaurants that are there. So I think that really, we want people to stay and linger. We just don't necessarily want them to be there for 6 hours if they're working or if they're riding the bike on the parkway. I think that it's going to move local street congestion almost immediately into the neighborhoods, because if I'm able-bodied and able to kind of walk, I'd rather not even have to worry about the parking thing, and I'll just park up the street. So the issue that we have during the really large events, I think, are going to start happening throughout the weeks on a regular basis. I also think the public that needs to be closest to the park are going to be folks who are perhaps disabled or elderly, or folks with little children. And so to suddenly disincentivize them parking close by having this factor in the middle, even if it's super easy, some folks are really uncomfortable with non-coin parking things. So suddenly then our seniors or folks are avoiding parking nearest to the park where they've got the safest access. And of course, with kids, people who have little children, we don't want them to also feel like, oh, I better park in the neighborhood and walk in because they've got stuff, little children, and things that could put them in a dangerous situation, since our streets are still nice and old fashioned. So I just suggest, as the other stuff, that we think about it a little bit longer and perhaps look at some other ways to limit the amount of time that people stay without necessarily charging.
Thank you. Ms. Clover, may I ask you a question? Just so I understand your position, are you saying that it's your position that Fair Oaks Rec Park District should be providing parking solutions for the businesses in the village?
I think that I think they go hand in hand. The park is going to be utilized that people who are in the businesses and they come out and they want to be there. And a lot of times the park is what draws people to the village. And then the cool thing is, let's go get some ice cream. Let's go get a burger. It's one of the cool things about being about village in itself, is that it has both of these things going on. And the times that we've had where businesses have gone out of business, or we've had nothing but one kind of business all throughout the village, we had fewer people enjoying our parks and the wonderful facilities that we have. So I personally think that it's the neighbors, the businesses, and the open space and parklands that make all of Fair Oaks just an amazing place to live. And so I just think they go, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, it did.
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand.
Thank you. Okay, next we have, is it Carrie?
Carrie or Corey?
I think it's Carrie. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Van Hart, and I apologize because I'm kind of late to the game. I have gone to neither meeting, so this is my first introduction to your park problem. First of all, I think there's a geographic restriction on this. We can't make more space short of a multi-level parking lot. You've got 91 spaces. That's all you can control. There are some other alternatives, but I think some really solid research on maybe what other similar communities that are landlocked, if you would, some really solid research into how they have done it, and if they've done it successfully, or as a managed system, maybe not what worked in this instance or that. But I have an idea. It's just an idea. It came to me at this point, so bear with me. If your 91 spots need to be utilized by people who are either utilizing the park on a random basis or renting, we're at Fair Oaks, and we're known for being a little quirky. We're known for being a little different and having out-of-the-box solutions. What about considering something like having some sort of a shuttle system tied to event rental? So perhaps something like if you had a wedding and you had like 100 persons attending, you might be required to contribute a fee to the shuttle bus. And it could be the Clucky bus, whatever. But just you could do something like that. And you could like negotiate with the Phobec lot, perhaps with the lot over where the big-ish store is across the street, whatever that big lot over there. Maybe there's some sort of a shuttle system that we could work that you could subcontract, subsidize with cost through rental or through district funds, whatever. But I mean, I think there's other things that you can do. I feel strongly that we should not have to pay for parking in this village. And I think if you make it, I like the idea when we talked about it being a very small amount. That's great, except I think what you're going to find is that people that want to go down to the river for 8 hours don't care if they pay $8. So I'm not sure that that's going to alleviate that component of your problem, which is a large component. So I think you have to think more specifically as the board about how can you manage your 91 spaces, how can you make them work? And I think the other part, working in conjunction with the county, would be really good, because I think eventually if you want to increase our traffic, increase turnover and that kind of thing, we have to come up with another solution, whatever that is. But I think thinking of something outside the box and doing some solid research on things that have worked other than paying in other communities with similar constraints might be very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. So that concludes everyone that I have public comment here. Is there anyone online that would like to make a comment? Okay, so like it was mentioned in the very beginning, this is it's just a discussion tonight, so there's no action being taken. We're just wanted to hear what the suggestion was or the presentation that had been made and the comments that have been received at the public outreach meetings. And so at this time, there's nothing for us to do other than to receive and file.
And have a board or like a directive perhaps.
Yeah.
We can, yes,
I mean, yeah,
we can do that.
I would see this as an action item in the next board meeting or two, maybe perhaps two board meetings to give ample time to the community for them to be notified and to come. I don't know if there's anything else that has to happen, if there is going to be a potential fee charged. We have to call anything more special to that?
No, the only thing that I want to caution is I'm still waiting on another legal issue here around this, and I have to have an answer to that, before we would even get close to making any kind of, before you get any close at all to making any kind of vote, because you have to know that, and I'm still investigating that. Attorneys are working on it right now. We have our district attorneys working on those questions, and then I will be meeting again with the county to discuss those, depending on what the attorneys say. I will be meeting with the county to discuss those and see where we sit. So I have something tangible to report in terms of the actual reality of something like this possibly happening.
I heard a couple of things from the public comment that I think are quite interesting. One of which is the shuttle idea. But we, RT has, I think if you call 24 hours, you can get one of the local shuttle buses. I wonder if working with RT, and I think maybe our supervisor sits on the RT board, if we could have some arrangements where when we have a rental, a big rental, like a wedding or something, we could pre-arrange for something like that and perhaps have an agreement with the facility over there by the post office to use their parking shuttle. It'd be worth exploring with our team. That may not be possible. The other thing was the comment that maybe we should wait and see a little bit. Let's not rush into anything with this. See what happens when we start to open up the facility there. See what our experience is. Have this plan in our back pocket if it becomes a situation.
Well, and the other thing that one of the commenters said was, why don't we just put up 2 hours? After 2 hours or 3 hours, you're going to get ticketed.
Well, then we would, I mean, so the idea before was pay and get ticketed, or in this situation, it could be after 2 hours ticketed. So enforcement one way or another, complimentary for 2 hours.
Maybe just stick up more of those signs like the one that's remnant of the past.
And there has to be enforcement, and those hours definitely do not benefit the managed parking.
Well, could we change the signs and make
That-
it 9
that-
to
that-
9, or make it like, cause I don't think that's
And-
necessarily a
and-
bad idea, Monday, or, 7 days.
Yeah.
It is the enforcement piece, but I think that's what we kind of need before I also always like having an agenda item, because I feel like more people come and then decisions are made, but at the same time, I also don't feel like we have enough information to make an up or down vote on anything, and so I'd love to see more about enforcement, I'd love to see more on
Well, the
some
enforcement
alternative.
plans.
Yeah, what the enforcement plan would be like, also we've heard so many great ideas and from both the community meetings that were happening and then also from tonight.
I do think it'd be interesting to see what would as well a shuttle plan look like? Is that even a feasible thing? Would costs be associated with that?
Well, not just for rentals, because
Yeah,
it's
no,
not just, we do so few rentals compared to, for example, the theater festival, when they would do shows in the amphitheaters, and the concerts that we would do in the comedy nights in the theater too. And so those are not rentals, those are things that we put on. And so, and they still attract, I mean, the theater itself, the amphitheater itself will hold 400 people. I don't know if it'll be packed every Friday, Saturday night, but it could be very full.
Well,
And
the
so
hope
that's one
is-
people-
But the hope is, that it is, well, and then I think if we wanna, or at least I wanna make it really clear in my understanding is that this is for our community. This is for
Yes,
Fair Oaks.
yes.
These events are for Fair
Yes,
Oaks. This
yeah.
is for the community at large. The village, everybody that lives in Fair Oaks that are paying tax dollars to have amazing events, great events in the community where they don't have to go downtown and they can support the local businesses around. I think it is important that this is going to be an amazing tax driver directly related to the community, directly related to the businesses that are exactly in the village. So we're just trying to make it a win-win for everyone, really.
That's something I'd like to stress. There was some misunderstandings at one time that we're going to have huge events like Mondavi Center or Harris Center, whatever. Again, we're looking at philosophically a lot more frequent small events, small concerts, small things in the theater, but a lot more frequent, so that there's always something kind of luring you down to the village to see. As far as rentals, I think we've had rentals ever since the 40s, I believe, and they're usually local groups using the clubhouse. And,
Or wedding, or anniversary, or whatever.
Nothing new about that. We've been doing that for years, so it's not like we're, again, trying to drag people in from all over the region.
Like Mike mentioned, there's still some very gray areas on who even really has the right of way of some of these spots. So we need to wait until we hear back for sure. Otherwise, this is all just a moot point. But the one thing that we have talked about in the past is looking into some of these similar type towns that have faced these issues. Have we ever actually made a phone call and talked to somebody that has experience with converting a situation from free public to a paid type scenario?
I've looked at two communities, and I've shared early on with Carmel. It's a different community completely. I don't have anything that right now I can say is comparable.
Well, Healdsburg comes to, I don't know, anybody finish.
Folsom has a problem because they have a parking garage, so they have a whole.
Yeah, they have-
They built,
Unfortunately.
And permits for the residents.
I know.
And the other thing about Folsom, I want to be careful here, that Folsom is a city.
Yeah.
There's,
It is
yeah,
not, we're unincorporated. We do not have a city.
there really isn't anything like it. If you genuinely think about other parks that you visit and you go to, it's not the same situation. And I think the most comparison things, if you actually look at situations with parking, it is metered or it is in some way paid. And that is so that people are not necessarily parked there all day. And it is enforced. The enforcement piece, though, to me, is a very critical piece if this were to be something that we were to do.
So it sounds like we
Right.
would like to talk about this again next month. But we do have one more public comment request. I want to make sure we get in before we move on. Jeff Carl, would like to come speak, please.
Good evening. I just want to, there's a couple of things. We're talking about metering or managing the 91 spots that are associated with the park. But what's to stop people who want to use the park but don't want to pay parking on the streets just across from the managed spots that theoretically would be for the businesses in this scenario? They're right out in front of their business. So I think that's going to create a problem in that the staff and the park board are worried about people using, being able to use the spots for the parks, but those people might just end up using the other spots because they're free. But then I wanted to address the usage issue because for the last 15 years, I've booked the Veterans Memorial Amphitheater for the Fair of Stair Festival for all of their events. We've had concerts with 500 people in attendance, in addition to a 20-person band, 20-person band and crew on the same night that there's a quinceanera in the clubhouse and the pub is packed to the brim, and everyone seemed to figure out how to do it. Even I used to hate Thursday nights, the night before we opened the show, because it was pre-concert in the park and nothing brought the community out more like the word free. And so Plaza Park was packed. I was trying to get 30 actors and crew in for a rehearsal. All the businesses are trying to get people in. And yeah, it was difficult, but it's always been difficult. And I mean, it's not like the entire time we had an event, everyone was up at the bar complaining about parking. I honestly can't tell you I've ever heard complaints about parking. I think people just accept that there's no parking structure. And I think charging for parking is going to make them come less than knowing that, they're just going to have to find a spot. So I don't see why we should be charging for parking. And I would also like to point out the survey that was put out with the QR code. I think there's a fundamental flaw in it because you had to answer all of the questions to submit the survey. And one of the questions was, what would you be willing to pay for parking? And there was no option to put $0. So if you look at the results, 231 people said $1 to $2. But it's an invalid question because.
Are you saying we're sneaky?
Thank you for sharing that.
It's not well,
you can't pay $0.
You
Thank
know,
you for-
it's interesting that I've attended a lot of theater events when there's a lot of things going on, and somehow we find parking. I guess it's like, where do people find parking? It's like, where did the chickens go? It's an unanswerable question.
It's kind of like, but yeah, sure, people aren't complaining because there's been no other way. And if there isn't another way or there is a better way, why are we going to just do things based on this is how we've always done it if there's another way? And I think that's what we have to consider. Additionally, if somebody is renting out the facility, I think it was in your presentation, and if it wasn't made clear, they could or would potentially get slots or they would have a code. So, you know, if they were a performer or whatever, if you were renting out the place, you could give them a code and they could pay, or they could have parking and they would not have to pay. So I think that's also important to note that there would be flexibility with that as well.
I know we don't want to do it, but maybe we should just wait and see. And if they have a rental, like a wedding or something, I know it takes staff time, but perhaps we can just tape off a section or so for that particular event, and those renters can figure out how they're going to carpool there and use the 10 or 15 spaces we allocate to them that we reserve for them. But I think we can go slow on this. We've got land in our pocket. If things get out of hand.
I think, well, it's something that I do believe we need to make a decision before everything is done. I do not believe that it's a wait and see thing. I think we make a decision one way or another, because the last thing people like, when you then reopen something that was free, and then now you're telling people to pay. Let's be honest, nobody wants it. We need to set either what it's going to be or not beforehand, ahead of time.
We need to figure out. We can stigmatize by your
Okay, so we're gonna move on to our next item. That was a receive and file. Our next item is, and everyone is welcome to stay. While I recognize it is 8:11. It's almost my bedtime, so I understand if you would like to go. This is your possible out. Because the next item, if you're not ready for bed, will help you get there. It is the discussion and possible action on approval of our fiscal year 2022-2023 final audit.
Yeah, thank you. This is our final audit, not for the past year, but for the previous year. This year, the audit was performed, again, by the city company.
Will this item be on the agenda for the next meeting, the special meeting you're going to have?
The special meeting that we will have the change order that we talked about extensively at the beginning. And then our next regular board meeting, which will be on March 19th. It will not be an agenda item, but we will be discussing it again.
And by the way, your point was well taken. I've been in the construction business for many years. I always rent facilities for supplies.
Okay. Jen, if you could continue, please.
Yep. So this evening we have our auditor here with us. Igor Shipton is here to go over the audit with you and answer any questions that you have.
Yes, good evening. I believe in your packet is just a one-page summary of the audit. I'm just going to touch on the highlights because I know your meeting is running long. Just the first item just lists the reports that we issued as a result of the audit. The opinion is considered an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statement. So that's the best opinion you can get. I won't go into the numbers in detail other than just to point out a couple of items. Your restricted cash balance, which is your unspent bond proceeds, were at 11.8 million as of June 30, 23. And you had 3 bond issuances that were outstanding for a total of 27.3 million. The statement of net position, I pointed this out in the past, is you have a negative, basically, unrestricted net position, mostly because of the large pension and the healthcare benefits liabilities that are required to be reported, but not currently payable. The balance sheet or the fund basis revenue and expense statements show that there was about 11.5 million of bond proceeds that were spent during the year on capital projects. There is also the governance letter that we issued, and it describes any adjustments that we had during the course of the audit. This year there were 31 adjustments, which was a slight increase over the 13 adjustments we had in the previous year. But we do have a recommendation in the management letter about looking at certain areas in the closing process so that those adjustments are identified in advance of the audit and adjusted during the closing process. The governance letter also discusses if we had any difficulties in performing the audit. There were no difficulties. It's just that there were delays in completing the audit because of delays in getting the books closed. Then we also issued a separate management letter that contains areas where we recommend improvements. We haven't considered any of these to be material weaknesses, but we did have some new comments this year that have to do with, again, the closing process and ensuring that past audit adjustments are correctly recorded in the accounting system, that the funds are in balance, and that certain accruals are done as part of the closing process. We also have some items that are carrying over from previous recommendations. One of them had to do with improving the accounting for the foundation, which is reported within the district's financial statements. We also had a couple of recommendations related to the capital asset policy, recommendation about developing a risk assessment process, and ensuring that retentions on contracts are accrued as liabilities. So we continue to monitor comments or recommendations until they're adequately addressed. So we'll continue to work with the district to resolve these items so that they don't carry over into the future. So I'd like to open it up to any questions that you may have.
Yeah, there was a statement in your cover letter about, it raised a question. We have a lot of liability for future pensions and healthcare and stuff. Are we still putting away a certain amount every year for that, to reduce that? Why did we stop doing that?
We didn't have any money. Yeah, that's the main reason. We're being very conservative right now in terms of expenditures and additional expenditures, because we're unsure of operations, obviously, coming up, future operations. I expect us to stabilize within 2 years after we open, and then we have to get back to visiting that option again.
And how much were we putting away? Were we putting away like 50 grand a year?
It was like 45 or 50. Yeah, right in there.
How much does that account have in it right now? Because we did it for a couple of years, plus the interest on top of it, right?
90, yeah, with some interest, yeah, it's a dent, not even a dent.
Okay.
It's a scratch.
Do we get points for that, Ingrid? We have one, because I think a lot of agencies do not.
Yeah, I mean, you are putting some money away in, there wasn't any in this particular fiscal year, but there was in the previous fiscal year 22. So it does help that you're putting money away from the standpoint of the interest rate that the actuary uses in the calculation. If you put money aside, they can use a higher discount rate, which lowers your liability. So it ends up affecting the calculation of liability.
So in the old days, when I first came on the board, we had like 2 retirees that were getting health benefits, and we had a different plan for retirement for newer employees. So I don't know, has the situation got worse or better over the last few years as far as mounting obligations for the future, or staying stable or reducing?
We have more retirees now. We do have 6 at this point. And healthcare costs are increasing every year, so it's not getting better.
Yeah. So I guess when our financial situation gets better, I could keep throwing some pennies into the account there.
I have another question, Ingrid, on the management letter where you have the various comments. I always like to think of these as like a to-do list, if you will, of them. What would you prioritize? Because you have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. If we could prioritize one, which one do you think would be the best one for us to start with?
Well, I think definitely the items that have to do with the closing process, that would be the highest priority, because of the large number of adjustments that were noted. It would be better to bring that number down. 31 is a lot of adjustments. So I think that, making sure that your accounting processes are in place so that, all of the adjustments that need to be done to close the books are done prior to the audit. So I'd say that would be really the most critical one at this point to make the next audit smoother. So yeah, I would prioritize that one as the number one item.
Those are just numbers that don't quite match or something, discrepancies. Who does all of that? Us, or is it the county? Oh, is it?
It used to be, we didn't do that, and now we're doing it, so it's, Jamie is learning as she goes. Last year, we used our contract CPA to do most of it, and this year Jamie did it all on her own, so she's learning.
I get it. I can't add 7 and 5 and get the right.
Okay, any other questions from anyone? All right, do we have a motion?
I move to, approve the 2022-2023 final audit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move on. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ingrid.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Okay, our next is a receive and file 8.5, the mid-year budget update.
All right, that is me as well. I'll just go through this fairly quickly. There's not a lot really to say about it. So we will start by looking at our expenses. So in terms of our salaries and benefits, this is through the end of January, so over half the year. We budgeted a little over 2.6 million. We spent a little more than half of that, which is right in line with where we are this time of year. Potential minimal savings, maybe due to some part-time employee turnover, just some problems filling positions when they open up. But probably not a lot of savings there. Then down here at the bottom, you can see past years, kind of where we've been and where we are now, and we're pretty much in line with where we are at this time of year. Then for our services and supplies, this is again through January. We budgeted almost 1.6 million. We spent a little more than half of that. We did have some unbudgeted expenditures, the Gum Ranch parcel split and property sale. The expenses are included in the amount that we spent. However, Sean Leslie will be reimbursed from the property owners, so that will come off of the total there. And then the replacement of picnic tabletops at Gum Ranch Park, which we had to do due to vandalism, ongoing vandalism. We can either absorb that into the budget, or if necessary, we can reimburse from the Gum Ranch LL, which we haven't had to do yet, but we could if we need to. And then I under budgeted our election costs by about $2,500, so that was an unexpected expense.
How much was the election in total?
58,000 and change. 58.
58.
But I think I budgeted 55. And then some potential savings, we do have a security services contract that has been terminated early, and so there will be some savings there, but some of that money will be expended in other ways for security. So the savings will be there. And then again, up on the bottom, you can see the prior year fiscal year comparisons. We are a little more expended than normal, but that's because we had some unexpected costs. All right, and then for revenues, our special assessments, those are our L&Ls. We budgeted 913,000, and we collected 589. That includes the 150,000 that we moved out of the Fair Oaks fund balance to cover some additional costs for our parks this year, so we're a little higher than normal in terms of how much we've collected so far. But if we took that money out, we would be right around the same as previous years. And property taxes, we budgeted 2.4 million. We've collected a little over half. That's pretty much what we are this time of year. There's nothing significant or extraordinary about that.
Is the county still holding to what kind of a property tax rate?
I just saw, the latest thing I saw was 5%, so that was higher than what I expected. That will stay. And then, revenue from other sources, we have our, let's see, interest income, which is higher than, we've already collected 100-something% of it, so that's more than what we budgeted and halfway through the year. Cell tower leases, we sold our cell tower lease, so we're gonna see a loss of that revenue. We will backfill that if we need to from the proceeds of the sale. However, we've started to collect a little bit of rent from our co-locator, so it won't be as devastating as it would.
Where did we put the money for the cell tower? Where is that being housed?
It's just in a general fund.
It's now.
It's probably why we've collected so much in interest. It's sitting in there.
Do we not have to? Did we not? I don't remember a conversation on where that money was going. I mean, did we talk about that?
Yeah, it is paying for the seating in the amphitheater. So that's 906, I think, right around there, stuff. The seating, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So that part of that went to that, and then the rest is.
That's what we discussed.
Just what you voted on.
We'll still have about a little.
I must have.
And then what else? Facility rentals, we are, I don't remember exactly what the total was, but we're doing fine on facility rentals. We don't have any facility rentals in our team. Even our field rentals and outdoor rentals are out right now. And then our program revenue for rec and A&E, we budgeted $518,000 because we thought we were going to have some more time to have programming across the street, but rec is probably the bulk of what you see out there right now. We're about 30% collected, which isn't terrible. We do see the majority of our revenue come in between now and the end of the year, so that number will go up.
Is that balanced by less costs for recreation, less instructors and so on?
Yes, absolutely. Some savings there if we don't have the program. Okay, that's it for the presentation. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is like a receive and file item.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, so we'll move to our last new business item, which is discussion and possible action on a change order for the Kerwin Valley Urban Village permit project.
Yes, this change order is for $86,923.60 for additional work that's required on Main Street as part of the Village Park renovation project. This change order is going to address some unforeseen requirements that were put on us by the county, not necessarily in a bad way. It's just items that we get when they did field checking with us. For perimeter street work along Main and Park, crucial for the paving to proceed in spring of 2025. This includes the cost for traffic control plans necessary for all the work prior to its commencement. So we had traffic control work that was needed to be done for this work, not for the road itself, because it did extend towards it as well. The original scope of this, under the contract for this, did not fully anticipate the extent of the site preparation and adjustments needed for the effective drainage. These assessments necessitated additional demo, regrading and concrete work, specifically around the newly designed areas. It's also added 30 additional days to the task for impacting the.
So this was because Cala's grades of the.
There were some grade issues and they were matching up to the actual curb gutter type of signs. Those had to be real lines, so we had something to button the road to.
So we demolished the curbs that were in there and this covers putting in the new curbs.
Yeah. And the seawall for the seawall. Because of the changing grade from the, if you know the two parking spots up there.
Yeah.
There's two parallel spots.
It's too steep now.
Too steep. Yes.
So they raised the seats.
We had to raise the seawall up to be able to backfill and then not have that drop, that substantial drop.
Didn't think they were going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Now, is it any of this?
And then we had to do some protection for the rainy season for that new area. So
is any of this attributable to errors, emissions on the part of Cala? Do you not want to?
I'm not able to talk to that.
Okay. Because it seems like there were some mistakes in the plans.
Yeah, I'm not able to speak to that.
Okay.
It just feels frustrating to have to do this after just going on and on and on about these panels.
Yeah.
And then here we have an even greater one that seems really just pretty unacceptable. That I feel like, at least with this one, there really is no way around this one.
Well, there's probably recourse, but we have.
Recourse, but that's after.
Post project.
Yeah.
So.
Asking approval to sign the change order.
Do we have a motion?
I would move that we approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So now we'll move to board and staff reports. We'll start with items from board directors. John?
Nothing to report.
Ralph?
I would love to have a walkthrough of the, inside sometime soon. I'll bring over my donations for a seat or two in the thing when I come.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the weather to improve again, and I'll send you a notice again for that walkthrough. We didn't get it last time because of the weather.
Me too.
Same. It'd be fun to do a whole, it'd be fun to do a whole report.
We'd have
Are we
we'd have to know it. We'd have to know it.
Board meeting next week.
Yeah, we-
That's it.
So I did get to do, I got the tour in between the rain and I have to say it was pretty amazing. It kind of gave me butterflies a little bit. It was great. It was really great. So I can't wait for others to see what we get to see. But I don't have
Nothing.
Darren?
Do we have an update on security for our parks since we lost Old El Camino?
We don't have currently any plans to have overall security that's contracted with the district to be up to that. I have still, again, been working with Sacramento County Sheriffs, who has been very responsive to a number of our immediate needs. They've been out there quick every time I've called them since we've lost that contract with Old El Camino.
And does that expose us to any liability, not having a dedicated? Then why didn't we ever do it?
We had some challenges years before I got here with some of the behaviors that were in the park, and the sheriff wasn't sitting on those issues. For example, dogs off leash, something that the sheriff doesn't.
Right, but if we don't have any liability for that, then.
Yeah, and so we're continuing looking at those. We were actually meeting with all the park districts around this area on this same issue, and we're all working.
Right, I know, I just wondered if there was an update.
Yeah, and you may hear something on this, as we talked about enforcement for parking, you may hear something about our ability to enforce local regulations in parks, and we may have that authority to do things like do citations for dogs off leash. We're getting that final ruling right now.
Got it.
So.
And that was a response when we hired them, they're having problems, and just having them for a period of time kind of knocked out the problem.
To some extent, yes. Would that make the problem further? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that we have major drug use problems just in Plaza Park on a regular basis. That was fairly consistent that they did clean up pretty well.
Well, construction stopped that.
A little bit before then, but.
We had problems over at the library too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move to items from staff. Jen, should you?
I have a small one.
Evening, Board of Directors. Jen Schuler, Arts and Entertainment Manager. I was able to speak with a few of you before the meeting, but I dropped off some letters for our garden gala. One of them is our sponsorship letter. So if you had any businesses or knew of anyone that may want to participate as a sponsor, I gave you a few copies so you can hand those out. If you need more, I can definitely provide those. I've also given you in-kind donation letters. So if you knew of anyone that had an item for auction that might be valuable, please pass that along. I also wanted to inform you guys that we'll do a bigger announcement, but March 7th will be the day that we'll go on sale for tickets, and we'll do a big splash on social media, but we're really excited. It's shaping up to be a nice event. That's all I have. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
Let's do next. Sean, do you think?
I would have loved to have brought something for that Bannister Park potential relocation survey. I do not have any pertinent information for you at this time. I will note that I've lost 4 out of 6 of my part-time staff members just recently. So to see some new folks out in Parks Green, I have almost got all the way back up
Some have moved on to full-time positions, because it's just a part-time position. Others, were previously retired and didn't really need it and wanted to stop doing it for various reasons. So, it just was a perfect storm, and it's kind of been a heck of a couple of weeks. So if you see some new faces out there, they are officially Parks employees, so don't run them off.
Is that part of your employment fair that you've advertised?
Yeah, I just stand out at the sign on Sunrise, really.
No, I mean the thing that was.
Yeah, we have an employment fair, well, we can talk Sean about it too. We have some vacancies in the recreation department with as well, so, that's easy.
I see.
How has, Sean, has there been any, I haven't seen any responses email wise about Miller Park? Has there been any other noted situations or issues?
To the best of my knowledge, no incidents have occurred since we have pulled the baskets. I believe that's correct.
The lady that talked about the fence, didn't we repair that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted, some of those statements weren't quite factual, right?
They change every day.
Seems to be the trend these days.
Well, thank you for that clarification too. Is there anything else, Sean? Okay, Nick? Jen? No, sorry, Mike?
Yes, I have a quick one. It is in your packet, your consent packet, but I wanted to make this out in the public statement as well. We are now estimating our substantial completion date, which means that we can access the park, the public can access the park as June 2nd, 2025. There's numerous reasons for the delay I can go into, but it's also in your packet.
What was it previously?
It was April 8th, at the last update you had on January 15th. So we knew there was going to be an extension during that window. We just did not have all the information to be able to give an estimation.
There's a construction bar chart in our.
Is there gonna be a big ribbon cutting?
We hope so. Yes, there will be. I would like to see one.
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to make clear that the extension happens on June 2nd.
Anything else? All right, a motion to adjourn, please.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.